At some point in the past, you may have installed SAS, created a SAS file, opened up terminal, and attempted a few watch commands. Then everything came to a halt. Then you start getting weird errors in the console, or you notice your SAS is compiling to the wrong directory, but can't figure out why. Yeah, this can be frustrating, but don't let it discourage you from crossing over to the wonderful world of SAS. So up next, we'll go over a simple watch command, what it means, and how to overcome possible errors. As I mentioned in the previous video, in our SAS project, we'll only need to worry about the style sheets inside the SCSS directory, because all the SAS code we write goes here, and SAS will automatically output a CSS file for the browser inside the CSS directory. So to do that, we'll need to get the SAS compiler running and watching our project. And we can do that with the watch command. Now, the watch command literally tells SAS to watch our project for changes. And it's what automatically converts our SAS files into CSS. So to tell SAS to watch our project, we'll first need to make sure that we're inside the right working directory. So back in the command prompt or terminal window, we'll need to type cd, which tells your computer to change directories, followed by the path to our project folder. So we're going to type desktop / and the name of our project folder, which is Lake Tahoe. And once we hit enter, this brings us to the root of our project's working directory. Usually, to keep our project nice and organized, it's best to have our SAS and CSS files in separate directories, like we've done here. So now we can tell SAS to just watch our SAS directory and update our CSS directory. So once my project is all set up, I like to use the command SAS -- watch SCSS : Now, this command is telling SAS, watch all the files in the SCSS directory for changes, then update the style sheet inside the CSS directory. So once we hit enter, if the watch command succeeds, you should see a notification like this in the command line output. It should say SAS is watching for changes, press Ctrl+C to stop. Cool. Now, if we get an error, it's probably because we've typed the wrong directory. So for instance, if we instead type the command SAS watch SAS to CSS, once we hit enter, we see that we get a no such file or directory error in the console. So let's go ahead and type the correct command once again. So we'll say SAS watch SCSS : CSS. And we may also see this write script here in green in the console output. This is telling us that SAS automatically generated a style sheet named style.css in the CSS directory. And if we open up our project folder and take a look inside the CSS directory, we can see how it did, in fact, create the style sheet that will contain our output CSS. And it also created a CSS map, which we'll get to in a later lesson. So remember, we don't even have to create the CSS directory because the watch command will generate them for us. So for example, let's go back to the console and tell SAS to stop watching our project by typing Ctrl+C. Then back inside the project folder, let's actually delete the CSS folder altogether. So now, back in the console, we'll retype the watch command. So let's say SAS watch SCSS : CSS. And if we take a look at our project folder, once again, we can see how it auto-generates the CSS directory, the style sheet, and the CSS map. Cool. And if we go back and take a look at our site in the browser and refresh, hey, all of our styles are back. Even though nothing in the syntax changed, all the styles written inside style.scss compiled over to our CSS file. Because as we learned earlier, any plain CSS written in our SAS file is also valid SAS. So now that SAS is watching our project for all changes, we don't really need to go back to the console for anything at the moment. You can actually just set it aside, but be sure not to close it because that will stop the whole watch and compiling process. There are also a few task runners and tools that can automate this process for us. So take a look at the teacher's notes for more information on those. So now that our installation and local setup are done, it won't take long to pick up the Sass syntax and start seeing the value of using Sass.